So in order to more automate or make our application versioning work smoother and with less effort as far as having to make changes and updates to the routes, we need to find a way to automate our selection of which controller to use. So the way we can do this is by creating our own controller selector. So before we start here, just to go really quickly over how Web API picks a controller. So there's a routing dispatcher that finds matching route. Then route gathers URL information into route data. And then there's something called controller selector. And basically what this does is gets the list of all the controllers that we have and then uses this route data to plug in which controller we want to use. Not extremely complicated. So what we're going to do, we're going to create our own HTTP controller selector. So we're going to override the default. And we're going to, in this controller selector, we're going to make it pick our version of selector. So in versioning, we need to look at the request as it comes in and to look for information in that request that will tell us what version of controller to use and to make a decision which controller to hand off our request to. So that there's a separation of what route is and what is the current version of controller. So what we need to do is in Web API config replace the default controller configuration with the one that we create. We're going to create controller selector. And our controller selector, we need to override select controller. So I'm going to be showing in the code how to do this. Basically what we need to do is we need to create a controller selector in our services, and then we need to override it in our Web API config. I mean, we're going to override it, but we're going to update it in our Web API config. So to begin with, in our services, I'll go ahead and create another class called counting case controller selector. Okay, so here's our counting case controller selector class, and I need to derive this class from default HTTP controller selector. And we need to bring in a namespace system web HTTP dispatcher. So we have this squiggly line, that means that we need to create a constructor. And in our constructor we need to go ahead and pass in the config. Okay, here it is, constructor. We passed in the config and we create a field here for our config _config. So the next thing that we need to do here is we need to go ahead and override select controller. So if we do the override, we'll see that select controller is actually one of the overrides we can do here. And this is where we're going to be doing our work to select the correct controller for our version. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get controller mapping. So we use the method called get controller mapping and put it into the controllers. Then route data, from our request we get route data by calling get route data method. And then finally we get a controller name by getting our route data values controller, and now we have controller name. So then we're going to create this HTTP controller descriptor, which is like a dictionary, and in order to be able to get out this descriptor, we're going to use this try get value from our controllers. This way, if there's something, it will give us the value. If not, it will just fall onto this return null. Otherwise, if we try to loop through and you can't find it, you could actually throw an exception. So now that we have this descriptor, we can go ahead and get our naming defined right here. So we have string version 2, string new name, concat controller name v and version. So this will give us the new name. And then we're going to do something similar here again. HTTP controller descriptor version descriptor. And basically it's trying to select our new version of our controller that we specified here. And it only does that if this new name, if it matches here. So if try get value new name, then it returns a new one. Otherwise it just returns the descriptor, original one. So basically this will build a correct controller, it will select the correct controller for our version. But we actually have to tell to our MVC here, Web API, that we want to do that we want to replace the original one. So we use this config services replace type of the original one, we're replacing it with ours. So what should happen now when we build and run this, when we select the version of our measures controller, when we select the link, it will actually take us to the newest version. Okay, so we have API nutrition foods, and we want to go ahead and get the measures. So there's no version, any version in here, and this actually might not work because I think that I need to change the name in our factory model factory here. See, I still have measures 2 route name, and we don't really have measures 2 route because we took it out, or we didn't take it out yet, but I should take it out because we're not going to be using this one at all. So we're only going to be using original routes. So I need to build this again. Refresh. And then when I click on this, I should be going to this API 2. See, so this is automatically going to our newest version, which is measures 2 v2 controller. So this is a really nifty way of being able to automatically go to the newest data that we have changes for. So now on the next video I'll talk about how to make this available to the users.